Okay, we're just getting started here. Go ahead and get this posted on the forum so anybody can join that wants to. It's Wednesday night, August 19th. Okay, well, trading opened officially today. I'm not sure of any huge trades going on. For rumors, the New York Jets have sent Zach Ertz and I believe Reeder to Oakland. I only had minor deals myself. I picked up a couple of pretty cheap inside linebackers and a safety, all fours, and had to send a young tight end I kind of like, Ricky Seals-Jones, on his way, along with Kyler Fackrell, who the Packers liked so well 2 years ago. They went out and signed a pair of outside linebackers to get him back to the bench after his 9-sack season. Anyway, he's nothing special, but he's still a 403, so that was a good fit for Jeff on Oakland. So anyway, he was involved in a Kiko Alonso kind of exchange. Okay, we'll see if anybody's coming on to join. I don't have a lot of material here with no participants, so hopefully somebody will jump on here pretty soon. Of course, I've got a Mavericks game coming on here in about 2 hours. Probably tip off a little before then, but I've got DVR set, so no problem going to late 30 if people want to stay on and go 8:30. We're waiting. Let's see what we can take a look at here. Got a rating spreadsheet up here. Take a look at some of the quarterbacks, I guess, real quick. I've got it set here where I've added the must-run yards that a quarterback's going to get, which is his yards per must-run times how many ever must-runs he's got, and add that to the short pass right, since those are going to be yards that you'll pick up off the quarterback card. And you see the sorting is a little bit different if you just look at the short pass just right yards. For instance, you've seen Lamar Jackson at 159, who is overall the best at 323 yards per 36 passes. But his 159 is about the same as what Garoppolo gets just off the short column. 14 catches, or completions for 154, and he's 13 for 159. So you see there's a lot to factor in. You miss out a lot, of course, more than anyone probably in history with Lamar Jackson, if you're not accounting for his must-run yards. This is why he's got such a devastating card this year. We've got some really good guys in here, like Tannehill, Mahomes. Tannehill's got some rushing yards as well. 18 completions for Mahomes, gets right short, and he's adding another 35 must-run yards, so hardly any slouch at 260. Tannehill's at 323. And 260 is not necessarily like the leader of everybody else either. There's a big drop-off when you get down to like 10, for instance. Here's Watson at 209. So there's quite a big drop-off there. All right, DC coming. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, Tim. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to participate today, but I just thought I'd listen in at least and see what's up.
Yeah, we're just kind of getting started here. How's things in the trade market for you?
I think I am matching Tom's 5 trades so far. I've just completed my 5th one, I think, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so just some of them are little, like I traded Lorenzo Alexander for a 7th next year. Some of them are medium, like ours with Todd Davis for a 4th. I did make one big trade where I traded my 1st-round pick last year, Malik Hooker, for Casey Hayward, an older cornerback 6. So, it's that type of day. Mick just picked up McGovern for a 3rd. I think that's just about all of them. I may have missed one, but so far so good. How about yourself?
I've had just very minor deals. Traded with Oakland. I sent Ricky Seals-Jones, Kyler Fackrell, and a 7th next year. Got back a 5th next year, and Kiko Alonso and Eric Rowe, safety 4. So just minor 4s to fill in the gap. I think all of us kind of look to do that early on, just in case we don't have somebody in the draft. Give yourself a little cover, and that's really all I did.
Yeah, I mean the Tom had the trades that he made were bigger, more impactful, but he likes to tend towards the younger side, so he moved some of his older, very good players still, guys like Julio Jones and DJ Reader and Allen Robinson, and now is loading up with some younger guys and picks. So we'll see how those all work out for him, but he's one of the better GMs out there, so as you are yourself. So it's always fun watching you guys. I wish I prepared as well for the drafts as you guys do, because I seem to be struggling a little bit there. I'm more tend towards trading for those impactful players and picking up guys, based on their NFL draft position. But I don't seem to put in I'm not a tape dog like Tom is, where he's watching the YouTube highlights for all these guys. I do my fair share of reading, but sometimes I'm just, relying on the opinions of others instead of forming my own.
I'm definitely not a heavy tape guy. If I'm looking at drafting a early round quarterback, okay, I'll spend some time watching old film and college tapes and trying to get anything I can. But a lot of the other positions, I don't know. Me getting an eye test on a young defensive tackle, no, I don't put much stock in things like that. And I'm kind of like you. The draft's not one of my strong suits either. I feel like trading off season is probably something I do better at, and a lot of it's not like I feel like I'm getting great trades. I just feel like I'm fairly good at moving guys I can't get the max out of at the current time for guys that I can at least fill a position with.
Sounds good. Yeah. So you were going over at the beginning with the quarterback cards, or what did I step in?
Yeah, I was just taking a look, and I think most guys probably do something like that. But just looking at the difference between a short pass right yardage that they put on the rating spreadsheet, and then factoring in how many must-run yards. Just looking at the difference of how far Lamar Jackson is, for instance, above the, let's just say the 13th guy, 194 to 323. That's like a 60% increase in yards.
Right.
It's a huge difference. Most of these other guys are, kind of packed in around, the 150, upper 150s to, 180 or so. And then you start really seeing guys in another group like 180 to 200. And then there's some guys that are just way above the rest of the pack. And, look at Russell Wilson, 250. If you just look at his short pass right, 185. And it's still good, but you're really, looking at another, 65 yards are missing without looking at the short pass right. And those things really affect the long pass right a lot too, because lots of incompletions for every quarterback on long pass. And if you're picking up some must run yards, that's a really big deal. Russell Wilson, 4th this year, 319. Tannehill's got a great card this year, 318, pretty close also. And then, of course, guys you'd expect to be way up there, Winston, Mahomes, that do throw the ball deep a lot.
Right. So you're just sorted them based on those columns, but then you have probably a different formula that you use to factor in interceptions and stuff like that, which might drop somebody like Winston down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm probably not as big a formula guy for doing things like that. I'll take a look at like wide receiver projected yards, guessed wrong, when you factor in things like dump off, right or wrong, how many receiver readings you're getting. But as far as like coming up with a ranking 1, 2, 3 on quarterbacks, I really don't do that a whole lot. I've done it before, but it's been 10 or 12 years since I've invested time in doing things like that.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do, because I'm not, one of these old school guys that was just counting chances all the time, is I like to do. I put my screen. I shared my screen right there. If you put that on the screen for a second.
Here we go.
I like to move these columns around, because one of the things that I find the most helpful when looking at quarterback cards are those hits. And yeah, must run's definitely a part of it. I have those columns over here too, but I'll put the flat pass right and wrong together, the short pass right and wrong together, and the long pass right and wrong together, as well as the must runs. And what that does is, like, I hear guys like Tom and yourself, oh, he's a 15-22 guy, or he's got 14-20. You know what I mean? Like those kind of terms, somebody who didn't really play the board game that much, I find that's very helpful to have those grouped together. And the same thing for, because there's a lot more variance in quarterback cards, but for wide receivers, you'll see, when I haven't done that yet for the wide receivers, but I'll pull those over as well. So I can have those grouped together, so that I know that it just gets me a little bit more familiar with talking about hits as far as, how to compare quarterback cards.
No, I think that's a great point. And as a matter of fact, let me see if I can find mine from last year. I did a little more work on my spreadsheet last year.
Yeah, I did something like that. Let me see. I guess I have, have that.
But yeah, I'll do that too. And I'll be honest with you, I hide a lot of the columns that come out on the ratings spreadsheet.
Because some of them I never look at. You're right.
Yeah, and personally, I take the conditional formatting out. I prefer just to look at, here's my 18. I prefer to just kind of look at them without the color and such. But for instance, here's tight end, and I just hit a lot of the columns in here between F and O just personally. I don't use yard after catch. I probably should have hit that as well. But
you should put your screen is. I think you took yourself off the show. Can you put yourself back on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me see what you're saying, because I don't see your screen.
There we go.
Nice.
But I just hide some of the columns here between F and O. Again, it's just a personal preference. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. And I'm kind of like, I think what you're referring to is number of hits. I kind of look at that too. And for instance, for a guy like Ebron, 22-30, I've got another thing that I kind of calculate out how many actual catches. And it works out to be, I believe, 8 and 20 for a maxed out or 6 short guy. I believe they get like 8 guessed wrong catches and 8 right and 20 guessed wrong roughly. So I factor that in when I'm looking and comparing what's the difference between like a guy that's 4 short. It's quite a bit, actually, especially guessed wrong. I think guessed right is maybe only 5 or something like that. So 8 to 5, not a big drop. But guessed wrong, you're dropping from like 20 catches to 14 or something like that. So much bigger differential. And I think
it's really good.
Yeah, I did the same thing with quarterbacks last year. I, of course, look at the interceptions really closely. But I always kind of do a combined must-run yards and long pass right or short pass right yards. And it's not fully inclusive as well, because the more chances you're reading must run and short pass right, those are potential dump offs you're not getting. So, you kind of in the back of your head need to kind of factor things like that in as well, I think.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's that's helpful as well. Like you said, when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to evaluate trades and stuff, it's good to look at those at the columns that are important to you. What matters to you as a coach.
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of a combination guy. I think most of us like the big yards. If you can get a 5 guy short or a 1926 guy, as they call it.
Right.
But if you can't get yards, or if you can't get all the catches, what do you like better? Would you rather have a guy that's 4 on short with maybe 6 long game wrongs chances, or a guy that's just got maybe 1 or 2 but is a 5?
I like the big yardage guys. I like those guys that have the plus 16, plus 18, the long gains in the short pass yardage columns.
Yep.
On the edges. Those, the hits are important, but you're going to need those big plays. And if you can get your receiver guessed wrong and hit a long gain from your own 30, those are the kind of impactful plays that win you games. So I tend to go, if I had a chance at a 5 with minimal yardage and a 4, in the column for hits, but with an 18-yard average, I'm going to go for that yardage guy every time.
Yep. Guys like Debo Samuel, I believe, is a 5, but he doesn't have the big long game pop, whereas a guy like McLaurin is a 5 with long games coming in, rookies this year. And then you've got guys like McCall Hardman. He's only a 4, but he's got some really nice long games. So those are all fairly, guys that are going to go fairly much in the mid to late first round. So
yeah, absolutely.
And
that definitely affects your draft position.
Yeah, and I think we could all, if we really wanted to, and we had the draft capital or whatever to spend on it, you could get a 5 type for your third downs. In other words, you could go find a Mohamed Sanu type if you need it. If you got like 4 4s, on the wide receiver slots, and you're like, I'd really like to have a red zone or third down guy, you could always go find a guy like Mohamed Sanu, not too expensive, really.
Right, absolutely. I think I picked up Julian Edelman in SOMIFA a couple years ago, and he never had that good long pass card. I got him for a 6th or 7th round pick. So, yeah, you can find guys like that, the Golden Tates of the world. Although Golden's a little bit more explosive than that. But, I know what you're saying. It's like the guys that get a lot of completions, but you go look at their long pass card, it's like, not going to target him there very often.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in that shape with Calvin Ridley this year. He's from, across the board, he's a 5.55, but there's no long gains anywhere. And, it's not like you're getting plus 18 on your short. You're getting plus 12, plus 13. So, and I'm not really down on him. He's apparently had a good offseason, and they're excited about him moving into his 3rd year. But it's not a card that's very exciting at the moment.
Right. I hear you. So what else did you have on the docket for us to talk about?
Now, let's see.
Are you, I mean, some of the things I think it was a good idea to have a show like this. So you talked about how you build your team, and we both kind of like to trade a lot, but you can't just only trade. I'm at that point in Autumn Wind where I've traded so much and got rid of my draft capital so often year after year that right now my team's old and it's just going to get older, and I don't have those picks anymore to replenish the cupboard. So it's always a danger to be too much of a trader, I guess, is one of the things I thought might be interesting to talk about.
Yep, and I kind of feel like I kind of backed myself up to that, Doc, I guess you'd say 3 or 4 years ago in SOMIFA. I was, I didn't have much draft capital. Looking at the roster, looking at the draft picks, I had older guys. It's like, okay, there's only a few guys on this roster who really have any value, and I could see about 12 or 14 of these 22 starters not even getting a card in 3 years. It's like the math doesn't work for me to kind of hang in here, and kind of felt like I was going to have to come up with at least temporarily a new plan. And I was just thinking, it's funny, I was just thinking about it a couple of days ago that I'm kind of reaping a couple of the benefits from that. And when you're really young, you don't have many guys that are retiring. If everybody's 24, 26, if they get cut, somebody wants to give them another shot a lot of times. It's not like you've got 31-year-olds that are, coming off 3 surgeries and I had very few guys just kind of drop off my team this year. So
Yeah, that's a big benefit of getting those younger guys. And then you don't have guys that, you know, younger players have a more of a tendency to make those leaps. So if
yes,
you have a team full of veterans, you're probably going to get something similar or worse in the following years. Whereas you can get some surprises with those young players, like, wow, okay, he's established himself, he's changed his diet and his work habits, and he's, you know, getting higher PFF ratings and higher strat ratings. And some of those guys can come out of the blue and really help your team at a position, you know, that you had a need at.
exactly. And a lot of times you look at some of those guys and think, well, maybe this guy's kind of a failure or didn't really do that much. Just to give you an example, a guy I traded today, Fackrell, you know, he's just a 7th-round flyer. He's just kind of hanging on the roster. Well, all of a sudden, 2 years ago, he's getting on the field in passing situation. I believe he had 2 different games where he had 3 sacks. So we ended up with 9 sacks for the year. Basically, he was beating a couple of probably, you know, second-team rookie offensive tackles that happened to be in the game when he was playing. But I'm saying, you know, they're counting stats. So it's not a quality thing. If he got 9 sacks, they're going to put him on the card. I think it was at, 4-0, 12-5 last year. I could have probably dealt him for a 3rd or 4th, but you know, hey, I needed a guy like that last year, so I plugged him in at right linebacker, and then he's only a 403 this year, but I was able to trade him off for another need without having to spend a draft pick. And that's the good thing about young guys. You know, if that guy would have been, you know, an older guy, that's about roughly what I traded DeMarcus Ware for. I think I traded him for a 7th rounder when I started rebuilding. And of course, Ware was at the end of his career, but you know, you think, oh, a 7th rounder won't do anything. But sometimes those guys can. They give you a card or 2, or like I say, give you a little trade value.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the other thing too, is you have more years that you can hold them in the expectations that you can sell them at their best or their, you know, their peak point, instead of like, oh, this guy was a 5 last year, I didn't trade him, and now he's a 4 or 0, and I'm not going to be able to trade him.
Yeah.
So age definitely works for you. You know, youth is served in that situation.
Yeah, and I think we're both an autumn win. You look at the Marco Lepage factor. He's the guy that just consistently, you know, makes good 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th-round picks, and all of a sudden, a year later, he's able to trade him and get a 2-round bump in the draft for, you know, a guy he picked up in round 6 last year. Now he's getting a late 3rd, early 4th for him. So,
right, absolutely. So definitely those. It's good to hang on to your picks, guys. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I learned from experience. Don't trade everybody away.
Yes, Dennis, Dennis and I speaking about keeping your picks. You know something's wrong with this show.
It's different. It's a different look at it anyway.
Yeah. I was looking at some of my former drafts, which I kind of keep a list of, and yeah, I've got like 4 or 5 years in SOMIFA where I dealt my number 1, and it's just like, headbanger. What am I doing? What kind of team might have had, you know, had I not dealt that guy? But you know,
yeah,
we all take our shots at, you know. For me, guys like Roddy White, but I've got some more embarrassing ones I won't bring up.
Well, okay, so I got my receivers. Just put a bow on it. If you share my screen again,
Sure.
So I did that for the, you know, real quickly. Just move, not that one, the other one, the one right next to it. Yeah, add that to the stream. So I just really quickly moved the flat pass right columns, short pass right columns, and wrong columns all next to each other. So then you can look at your receiver and say that guy's a 22-30, he's max short. This guy's a 15-21, he's max deep. I mean, you kind of have that in these columns here, the blue, yellow, and green columns, but it's just nice to look at it with the numbers together next to that. So that's it. That's all I wanted to show you.
Yeah, look, most of us have those kind of numbers already ingrained. So if we see a 18-22, you know, or a 16-22 short, you know, we've already kind of know that, okay, that's a 4. But the percentage things kind of takes new learning. I don't know if, you know, all of us want to kind of learn a new way of looking at that. Okay, that's a 72%er, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. So, all right, put yours back on now. So.
All right. So let's say you've got a tight end 4. Or who's a really good yardage receiver, and you've got a tight end 6. Is there a set way you would like one or the other, or feel like if I'm going to run a tight end 6 out there, he needs to be able to do X, like go deep with a dot or something like that?
Well, we saw some success with Zeb using Robert Tanyan in a way that maybe most of us wouldn't have done, where he, relied a lot on the running game. He put the six out there. Maybe he wasn't his best receiving tight end,
Yep.
but he was able to use him. You like to have those guys that have like the high blocking rating, and then aren't limited by, even if they don't have the hits, but if they can go like 50 yards because they had like one fluke reception or whatever, I'd like a guy like that over a 4 or 0 tight end that has maybe more hits, but isn't going to give you the blocking, and maybe they only have a max of 32 or 35 yards. So it's kind of one of those things you have to look at it on a case by case basis. But I am starting to see, and Tom did the same thing too with Max Williams. So I'm starting to see the value of playing those guys that have good run block ratings on the edges. It really enhances your run game on those end runs, and you still need guys. The other thing too is that some of those tight ends, I love those tight end cards where they have like the high flat pass receiving yardage. So
Yeah.
they have like a plus 13 on 5 or 6. Those guys are fun, even if their short pass cards may not be as good. But if you can drop that flat pass in there and pick up a first down on 3rd and 9, that's helpful.
Yeah. Now, some of those guys occasionally will have like 16, 18 hits of 10 or better flat. They may not be great receivers, but you go back 4 or 5 years, like the old Jim Dre card, for instance. Man, I really don't care what he is, short or long. There's so much value to me in having a guy who can get like on rolls of say 2, 4, 5, 6, and maybe 10 can get like plus 10, plus 11, plus 9. You get most of your chain distance right there in one shot on a flat pass. Those guys have a lot of value, and I can overlook some bad short and long columns and run blocking if they give me that kind of contribution to my flat passing game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, Dan.
All right, Tim, I'm going to jump off. I got to go do some family things, but keep up the good work. I'm looking forward to listening to it later.
Okay. Jump back in if you can. Take care.
All right. Sure will. Take care.
Hey, Dan. Well, I've got a Dan on a pair of them, but no audio at the moment. I was kind of hoping to have a few guys on that I could ask them questions and then just kind of piggyback on their answers rather than having to think of something myself. However, let's see what we can do to keep things going here. Looking at some of the running backs, I've got them sorted at the moment by off tackle wrong. Some of these guys aren't so good in run comparatively, like Gus Edwards, guy I've got Tevin Coleman, Benny Snell, guys that have really nice, guess wrong, off tackle yards, but not so great in run. And you occasionally see guys like that, as we know, that are either not good on in run or linebacker. They're off tackle in one or the other, but not all three. So we see a couple of guys like that almost every year, like I say. And then you take a look at the in run wrong, you won't see that many guys that are just terrible in the off tackle. Taysom Hill a little bit, 328 in run wrong, 166 off tackle wrong, but he's kind of an outlier, being kind of more like a wildcat quarterback than a true running back. One of the things several guys were talking about is off tackle wrong. It's just not one of those things. A few years ago, Shady would not always even lead the league, but he was always in the 18 just to maybe 22 range, 24, I believe, sometimes. I think McCaffrey's got a real good card. Of course, I always try to throw a T in there. he's always got a really good card, or he has a really good card this year, pretty much across all columns. He gives you a pretty good combination of right and wrong. Not like the old style running backs we're used to with, like, 7 and 8 wrong, plus 38 on 11, long gain on 12, 328 total yards. Some of the really good running backs from year to year we'll see approaching 400, like Jamal Charles, I believe, would get in the upper 300s. This year you got McCaffrey as 381 in run wrong, which is really nice, but again, not quite what we've seen as some of the top guys in the past. Some of the quarterbacks have pretty good in run wrong cards this year as well. You only get to use them a little bit, but they've actually got a comparable in run wrong to some of the better running backs when you get into some of the top quarterbacks. Taking a look at them, like, of course, Lamar Jackson, 459. Of course, we're looking at 371 for McCaffrey, so best in-run card of the set. And then Kyler Murray, 344. Prescott, Hundley, Deshaun Watson, 318. So when you look at those compared to some of the running backs, you've got quite a few of your, top 15 or 20 in-run cards are coming from the quarterback position. So for those 1 to 2, maybe more if they're pistol rated attempts, got quite a bit of in-run yards to work with there. Here's Josh Jacobs, rookie. He's got a nice, consistent 285 in-run wrong, 303 off tackle wrong, and 270 linebacker wrong. So it's got pretty consistent in all three columns, guessed wrong yards. Guessed right, he's really pretty good for the set. You see 62. If you sort by yards, his 62 is 16th best in the set. So, and he's not, 10 yards away from, say, being, 12th or something like that. There's just not really a lot of guess right yards. You've got Gus Edwards with 89 yards, but 75 of those are tied up in the short game. That's either on 6 or 8. I believe it's on 8 this year. And here's McCaffrey, no yards tied up in short gains, but he's got 88 yards on the card. And so most of those are tied up in chunks. And I kind of like those. It gives you a chance to pick up first downs on 3rd and short a lot more than some of the other cards that are just, all you get is short gains and zeros and -1s. So. Well, let's, like I say, I'm not really prepared to do a solo show talking about tactics and strategies. So see if anybody's going to join. If not, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. We'll maybe try it another day. And it's been about 35 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Try this maybe another time when somebody can join, but I'm going to go get ready for the Mavericks basketball game. Go Mavs, and you guys have a good night.